Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me for the segment, we have Alex Coffey, market strategist over at TD Ameritrade, with an update on technical levels to watch in the Nasdaq-100 as we get the all-important Fed rate hike decision tomorrow afternoon. Alex, it's great to see you as always. Welcome back to Trade Talks. And I want to take a look first at the heat map, which shows what stocks are moving the Nasdaq-100 today, and of course, fresh technical levels to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. First thing that sticks out here, Jill, first off, thanks for having me as always, is there's a lot of green on the screen here today. Over 85% of the names in the Nasdaq 100 are higher on the session. And while most of the colors are not that bright fluorescent green that's associated with big moves, what I found quite interesting is that a name like AMD is one of the brighter colors that we see here, and we are ahead of earnings. So we're expected to get those results after the close today, yet the optimism is brewing before the report. So this week, as you mentioned, of course, has the Federal Reserve. We're going to get jobs data on the macro front as well at the end of the week, but it's also a jam-packed earnings week. So a little bit of something for everybody, micro and macro. And while a lot of these are certainly risk factors, some of this is seen as possibly catalyst to the upside, as earnings on balance have mostly been pretty strong, and the reactions thereof have been pretty strong as well. On the technical front, you mentioned the Nasdaq 100 technical levels. We're going to go back to kind of our old faithful chart here. We've looked at this for several times over the past few months, Jill. Kind of our traffic light setup, keep things simple and easy. Up at that 13,500 level, we have our red light, sort of a support level, or a resistance level rather, where rallies have stalled in months over the past years. This goes back to April of 2022. But more recently, we've seen the basing structure happen around 10,500 point mark in the Nasdaq 100, leading us to that yellow light at the 12,000 line, which has really been our battleground. And it continues to be just that as we hover around that point here. And all of this stuff on the calendar is hoping to tip the scales one way or the other. But this could very well be a sort of make or break point in the index level, as well as on the fundamental front with all the updates we're about to get.
And Alex, if we take a look at the Nasdaq-100 Volatility Index, known as VOLQ, anything you can discern from there in terms of how the market's interpreting what's taking place over the next week?
Yeah, I think that we can gather two key pieces of information from this chart and its recent move. One, notably, it's near its lowest levels over that period, going back to April of last year. And that makes sense. We've started to see a nice rally brew to start the year, but it has notably upticked off that low level from the last year. And I think that makes sense, given all of the things that remain on the calendar. As I said, maybe there's optimism brewing. Maybe you see buying come into names like Apple and an AMD before earnings, but that doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily be positive news. So there's still that feeling of uneasiness, and we saw that yesterday with a little bit of weakness in the general marketplace. Bounce back day here today, but ultimately by the end of the week, we could see normalization of that. We could see a deterioration in the volatility if we get through these events. But that's the key if, and there's just so much left on the calendar in just the next 2-3 days.
All right. And Alex, to wrap up here, I understand there's some updates to the Thinkorswim platforms.
Yeah, no doubt. No, this is really an important message that TD Ameritrade and Charles Schwab together want to kind of illustrate. Is Thinkorswim over the years has been an industry-leading platform for retail traders, and it continues to be that. But of course, there's going to be a ton of focus on integrating that and ultimately bringing those platforms to Charles Schwab. So we want to emphasize that platform stability, of course, is always going to be the number one most important thing to TD Ameritrade and Charles Schwab. But we aren't forgetting about the investors who ask for things and want updates and innovation, and we're going to continue to bring that as well. Not only just to the desktop traditional Thinkorswim platform that many are used to, but also Thinkorswim mobile, and more recently the Thinkorswim web option that is kind of filling the void for so many that are looking for access to just something a little bit more than traditional grid websites, but also maybe not something quite as daunting as the Thinkorswim desktop platform. So just wanted to stress that we're innovating still. We're still putting focus into bringing more to the platforms, but of course focused on bringing the most stable platform we can to our investors and traders as well.
Yeah, really quite remarkable what retail investors have at their fingertips. Alex, appreciate the insight as always. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq.